Good morning. Welcome, everyone. This is Youngstown Stock Channel. We're doing the morning show. Kelin is here with me.
Morning.
These were my favorite. When we used to do these on the radio, our back and forth used to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's honestly like during our normal stuff, we try to stay away from politics. This is all about
During
politics.
our normal stuff, we try to stay away from politics.
We do. In words.
We don't try very hard.
In words. So
Yeah.
if you're listening out there and you want to join the program today, we do have a phone number. Kellen's going to keep an eye on it. We're going to walk through.
Yeah,
her
so
taking her
good
first
luck.
Call. 330-595-1600. You can call the program. We're going to talk about what happened last night in the joint session of Congress, where President Trump made his what would have been the what's that thing called? The State of the Union address.
It's like a State of a Union, but addressing what the
yeah. Well, in historically speaking, like this is just all the preliminary. You haven't really started doing anything because you're just getting your appointments passed through Congress, and so like this is the beginning. This is where you outline what you're going to do.
Yeah.
He actually had some shit to say about what he's already done, and so it was a weird one because it was literally a State of the Union, even though it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean it's let's be real. These things are like pep rallies, basically.
Yeah.
For whatever side is in office that year, it's a big pep rally. It's people get amped, and of course, if you're not for the side that's currently
what
in
should
office,
it be? If it we sort of refer to as what it used to be, right?
Mhm.
And I can say like the founders coming in the early Congresses and their powdered wigs and their hand in their vest and they're talking in a eloquent language and that's what it used to be, where there was some sort of like sachet that
decorum.
Exactly. They would do it a special way, and those people, if they sat and listened to what happened last night,
Oh yeah,
they would be like, they would not know what they're watching or looking at.
I tell you though, like I'm 41 years old. I got no business staying up till 11 p.m. So if we're not even starting till 9, we better make this exciting. Like I want something to hold my attention.
All right, give me your thoughts on the substance and the presentation, what it did, what it didn't do. Give me finer points and the weaker notes.
Well, it's interesting. When it first started, my husband and I were sitting there watching, and I said to him, I was like, let's see if maybe he takes the high road. He's known, of course, for being a little outlandish, his ego. He's got no qualms about saying exactly how he feels. And I said, obviously this is going to be a very divided room. Let's see if he takes the high road, if he's the bigger person, if he talks about unity and working together. And for the most part, no, that's not how it was. I think he took jabs where he could take jabs. I think he gave little digs to people. I can't say I blame him for any of that.
Well, why would you do that? If you got history of the last decade of, coming to the table and bipartisanship, and if that was acknowledged and you give a peace offering and it's reciprocated where you get that right back, then it's an effective strategy. But if those people, no matter what you say, are going to bash you in the mouth, why not take an aggressive approach and just bash them in the mouth too?
And that's why I say I can't say I blame him. I mean, he directly stated, it does not matter what I say. This half of the room is not going to clap, is not going to stand, will not acknowledge anything good. And I think we saw that all night, which is so frustrating, annoying, but I get it. So yeah, I think if you are pro-Trump or you are on the right side, right as in right or left, I think you really liked it. It was interesting. I mean, people got kicked out. People were yelling. He made little digs and he had a lot to report on. I mean, he talked for 2 hours, which is now he set a record. I heard that is the longest speech in that setting of any president. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. What did you think?
He's the best troll on the planet. He really is. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he went longer on the speech just so the rebuttal would be such in the middle of the night that barely anybody would watch it. Like the petty things. When you start playing the game, right? And you play the game and it's somewhat effective. If the other party plays the same game and they're better at you, I don't really feel, I mean, it's not like we were all, kumbaya before this happened. It just so happens that he's a way better troll than you are. And what happened was the Democrats were chased so far to the fringes, right? They live there now and they can't come away there. They're boxed into it where they don't have public appeal, right? You don't have a majority. You lost. And so, like, if there were smart people in the Democratic Party, they would be like, all right, we stay right here. And not only are we going to lose, but like we're going to have to become more animated, more disruptive, more punch in the eye. And we're not even really good at that. Mm-hmm. And so somebody with intelligence in that party has to say, all right, let's break out. Let's moderate our opinions. Let's find out what the people will support and stay on board with. But as long as we have these 80-20 deals and we pick the 20 every time, you're just going to stay exactly where you're at.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm real big. I'm constantly, I feel like, pointing out hypocrisy and people being hypocritical, and it's not one-sided, but yes, last night, clearly we saw how it's not like the Dems don't do it too, but he was if you went into last night hating Trump, I bet your blood was boiling. Yes. And if you went into it loving Trump, you were cheering and clapping and enjoyed every minute of it.
It's a team sport. Like that primitive tribalism, right, is so rampant, and the people who are in it can't get out of it. They are stuck there forever.
Yeah.
And think about, like, if there was a Fetterman or there was a Bernie Sanders that decided that somehow Trump floated something that they like and they're going to support it and vote for it, they will get killed by their own party. So it's not like they can, even if they wanted to, go with their convictions.
Yeah. And I would have so much respect. And I think there were a few people that on the other side that when they heard something they could get on board with, did clap or did stand. There was maybe a couple. And that to me says a lot. If you want to spout off that you are for unity, for working together, for crossing over the aisle and working together to do whatever is right for the American people, but you can't even acknowledge a good idea because it's from the other side, you are the problem. You are the one keeping it divided. And I don't care what you say. If you can't say, I don't agree with this, but you may have something here with this, I could get on board with this, and acknowledge that both sides may have good and bad ideas, then what's the point?
That's not even the game that we're playing.
Oh,
and so
no.
The idealism in us, right, it is misspent because this is brutal, savage politics, and that's it. Like that's where we're at, and that's where we're going to be. So I compared a couple of the media reporting on what went down, and it's amazing. If you're watching CNN and you're watching Fox News back to back, it is like freaking night and day.
Yes, you'd think two different things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we happened to have the channel on NBC. That wasn't a conscious decision. It was just on when it started. I didn't want to miss anything, and we started watching it. But yeah, a lot of the commentating and things that were said, I'm just like, and I said, let's put on Fox News and see if we get a whole other explanation.
And you did.
A whole other picture. Yeah. And all that grinds my gears. That kills me. I would love to see a non-biased platform be able to air things like this, and maybe only air it. Like, I wonder what it would take to how some shows are sporting events, so you can like sort of buy the rights to show things. Wouldn't that be so interesting if it were only on a platform being broadcast that was not owned by either side? That'd be so interesting to see what the tone would be like.
It'll never happen. We won't.
Oh, no.
The majority of people will spend their money on confirming their biases, and they want to hear people say the things that they believe in. And so it's better to have just two squads. Like, you put it up, your Republican outlets, your Democrat outlets. And if you want to go hear what you want to hear, you go there, pay your money, and they get your views. You take like a C-SPAN that will just give you a feed and not make any commentary, and you just watch it. It's not quite as interesting, because think about how more information you would get, because it would be up to you to decide. But then you tune out immediately, because how many people tuned in to see what the commentators felt about it, so they know how they should feel about it?
Yeah.
We're adopting and outsourcing our beliefs to whoever mainstream media source we're watching.
Absolutely. And I think if somebody does go into anything like last night or any topic for that matter, and they feel that they are unsure, I don't really know what to believe here or what to think about this. And you do want some input from commentators, fine. But take commentators from multiple sources, not just one. And see
it's the
what
trickery
they do.
because we get on this whole everything is a marketing deal, and politics is marketing. You got two groups that are trying to like take one story, and one's trying to paint it in the worst picture, and one was trying to paint it in the best picture. So you watch both of those and you combine them. So for instance, we'll take the Social Security numbers. All right. This was a big one that when I tuned into MSNBC or CNN, one of the two, they're both the same, that they were talking about how that was a lie, right? The Social Security number. So if you watch.
You're talking about the people that were like hundreds of years old? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So before I say anything about it, your thoughts on did Trump lie by saying those Social Security numbers and whatever he said about the Social Security numbers?
Well, weren't those found somewhere? I remember you showed them to me before last night. Where did you find those?
Those were the Doge team published the database results and put the raw numbers and put a little spreadsheet out on social media, and they've stuck. So the future reporting had the same numbers that we saw on the second day.
So they're saying that the whole Doge information was a lie, was fabricated.
They did. All right. So let me correct you before we go too far into that.
Okay.
All right. So Trump said that the Social Security database had people in it that were noted as that old. He didn't say they were collecting Social Security. He said there are some even in those numbers that are collecting a check, right?
I was gonna say he did say some are.
Some are.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's two highlighted pieces of data. One, the Social Security office has inaccuracies in their database, right?
Yeah.
So that's point number one, is if you have all of these paychecks, all of these staff, right? You have an IT department. Do you think that if you're paying money out, like a business would be, that you're paying money out, that somebody's job is to go through and make sure that you have accurate data, not that it's paying out, but just accurate data. So if they ran a query and said, oh, my database has 300-year-old people, that's inaccurate, let's clean that up. And then we know that there is, some intelligence behind that deal. The second part is if you have inaccurate data. So let's just say you have people on the voting rolls that are 200 years old. The data is inaccurate, which means it lends itself to fraud, misvoting, checks going out to people they shouldn't. So these are two different ideas. Is your data accurate? And because your data is inaccurate, could it lead to people being paid that should not be paid? When if you've cleaned up the voter rolls and you cleaned up the age of people who are in Social Security, you've minimized. There's zero downside, right? Because the 200-year-old people aren't good in there. Either their ages are inaccurate and that could be fixed, or they've long been dead and that can be fixed. Now you've minimized the amount of probability for fraud with no downside whatsoever.
Except it's a downside to those that don't want to make the other party in any way look good.
Exactly.
That's why it kills me where things could make sense, things could run more smoothly, but then it would look like whoever's in office when that thing started to run more smoothly looks good. And the other side can't have that. So they're going to say, don't look into our information. Don't clean anything up. Let there be errors in here so that when those errors are pointed out, we could say you're a liar. Yes, there's somebody listed as 250 years old, but they're not collecting a check. You're a liar. When we're like, let's not have someone listed.
Exactly. There's got to be someone that's saying, well, couldn't you just make it accurate? And then we don't have anything to discuss. But who's defending allowing inaccuracies in government? Right. That then we have to have faith that every other department, that's one slice of information that one person pulled and it was ineptitude, total inaccuracy. What about the 5,000 other databases that benefits are being drawn on that probably have just as many inaccuracies? But if I went through the database and it all looked fine, now I can trust that, people are competent in government and that, start drawing benefits on it because we fight super hard to make sure who we're sending it to is who should be getting it.
And here's a question I have. Usually, depending on either side, when they start spouting off about something, I can typically see what they mean by that. Oh, I think you're confused, but I get why you would think that. Here's what I don't get. Why are the Democrats accusing Elon Musk of stealing? What is it they think he's stealing?
Okay. All right. This is a good question here, because like this is one of those inconsistencies and those principles. Like if you're me and I'm cynical against all people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you would hold me to consistency, to saying I'm going to look at everybody as suspect and make sure everybody is kept in check and make sure everybody's following the rules. But the same people are saying, you know, is there a potential that you have somebody that you didn't vote that goes into a system and has nefarious means to make sure that they steal from the government or they set up their own contracts? Absolutely. And I can stay consistent on that. I hold everybody, if there is a potential that there is fraud. So if you're the cashier at a bank, or you're doing casino chips at a casino, or you're in charge of counting ballots, all of those have a probability that you're in a position where you could change an outcome or do something that was, irregular or had malicious intent. I want to make sure there's someone watching you count the ballots and a way of auditing what you're doing. But here's the thing. The Democrats who are saying, I don't trust Musk, that he's going to get in these records and start stealing stuff, are the same people who for the last 3 months were saying these two things. Here's my inconsistencies, right? So do you know that there was voter fraud?
Do I know it?
Do you know it?
I guess I can't say I know it.
Okay, stop right there. Do you think that there's a potential that there is voter fraud?
Yes.
So if we are unbiased, we're going to say, all right, I don't know that there's fraud. I don't want there to be fraud. So let's go look at that. What did the Democrats say? You have no proof, right?
Yeah.
You have no proof. When we say vaccines cause autism, right? Me and you would say, let's check into it and make sure that it is not contributing, because we're unbiased and we're being objective. Mm-hmm. What the Democrats say, you have no proof.
You are dangerous.
So if your go-to line is that we can't challenge accepted anything until we have proof, then I'm like, okay, we'll stay consistent on it. There's a probability that Elon's in there stealing money out of there. But guess what? You have no proof. So go get you some proof and then we'll talk about it. So I can stay consistent because that's a belief based on principle. And you're just marketing. You're advocating because you don't like the guy, that you're bringing up suspicion without proof to be able to impugn somebody that might have integrity or might not have integrity. But at least be uniform. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. And we see that too with the name calling. When you're a Nazi, you're a racist, you're this and that. Okay, well, show me a legitimate example in which they showed racism or Nazism, because I can point out specific examples that we have all seen that would say otherwise. Now, are you just name calling because you don't like someone, or is there a legit reason? And I have yet to see a legit reason. And if you tell me that saying my heart goes out to you was a Nazi salute, you are discredited to me, because I can show you about 8 videos of other people doing and saying the exact same thing, and they were not called a Nazi. So if you think that's a Nazi thing to do, then you better call a lot of other people that same thing.
Well, it's toddler behavior. And you know, when my son was probably 3, right? When he would get mad, like he's so mad, he's fuming. He doesn't have a way of expressing it. So he thinks of the meanest thing to do to you and expresses himself that way. I remember one time, like he liked his birthday. And one time he got so mad at me. It wasn't even my birthday. And he said, not happy birthday to you, because that was the meanest thing. It was the only thing that he liked, really, liked a lot. Yeah. And it's the meanest thing that he can think of. So the Nazi. You think that's a cute, endearing thing?
So cute and
sad. All right, Jeff Blackstone's checking in, says, good morning. Glad you guys are on the air. Jessica says, some of the things he says is great. Some of the things he says is great. Unfortunately, a lot of innocent people were brutally harmed these last few years. War crimes aren't something that should be celebrated. Thank you for checking in, Jessica. Carter says, NBC, pure propaganda. Jeff said, WKBN should pick up your show from 9 to 12. Way better than what's on there now. Thank you, Jeff. And to answer some of these, again, there's a lot of idiots that are behind, diplomacy and international affairs. And what we saw going down with the blow up in the Oval Office. Did you see it between Zelensky and Trump? Did you watch that whole thing?
Are you talking about like when Vance was there? So I saw the snippet that went viral. I did not watch the entire interaction.
Okay, so here's the deal. So the United States is just like the piggy bank ATM machine that when somebody has a crisis, they come to us and we just dole out money, right? We don't get anything in return. It's just we have all of these weird, valueless transactions with sometimes the countries work against us and they absolutely hate us and we give them money, right? So the new angle on this is let's find out who our real friends are, the people who will actually reciprocate. So if you're got an agreement with your neighbor and they're like, hey, I can't take my trash cans down. We take my trash cans down. And you're like, yeah, can you check my mail when I'm on vacation, right? We have an agreement, right? We both get something out of it, something I could do for you and vice versa. What happens when you don't do your side anymore? Should I just keep doing my side and be like, well, I guess it's good diplomacy? No, you're an idiot. As soon as the other person stops giving you value, then you get to bail out of whatever it is. And in the future, make a new agreement, something that you can be a little bit more satisfied. So, Ukraine, I'm not saying that they're creating these crises because they are not, responsible for being invaded by Russia. But what they are responsible is, as long as I've been alive, loves to magnetically attract corrupt money so that certain people could just make loads of money, off of the taxpayer dime and whatnot. And we are the biggest enabler when it comes to how much money we're just willing to, shoot off at them. And all the other people, they criticize the United States as being, they criticize us a lot, but we're the sugar daddy for that area.
Yep. And how much do you want to hear people say, well, we have our own problems and we need our money here and we've got to take care of our homeless and our poor first. And then we say, all right, well, let's look into what exactly our money is doing and where it's going. And do we have any for our own? No, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't want you looking into that. That money needs to go elsewhere. And it's like, they're never happy. They're never happy with whatever it is you do. It's good guy, bad guy, no gray area. I'm reading this. I'm trying to read this comment.
Good.
100% I agree. You should be in the morning slot. Oh, have an intelligent local to have a real discussion is really needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. And if you want to call the program, 330-595-1600. And more about Zelensky. So I can see where there's advantage to doing either way. Playing hard ass with all the people, the spoiled brats who've been, using us for money and not really considering, what they're going to give back in way of support. So when's the last time Ukraine sent some stuff our way, right? Can you think of anything? If we went up and said, hey, want some of these minerals, they'd be like, oh yeah, $0. Here's some minerals. So it's almost like we have to break the addiction to U.S. taxpayer money to all of these countries that have created dependence. So if you've got all of Europe, right, that they can give all of these great social safety net benefits to all of their people because they're using U.S. tax dollars to do things that they should be doing on their own, right? So we're fronting the military, we're fronting the aid, we're developing the medicines, we're doing all the heavy lifting. And then the other countries don't have to do all that. They know, like, if we get in trouble, we don't have to put together an expensive military. If we need something, those douches over in the United States, they'll just come to our rescue, and then we can give that money to our people. But if you're doing both, acting like you're a rich country, but offloading your liabilities to an actual rich country, somebody's got to come along and say, let's act your wage over here in the UK.
Yeah.
Canada, you like the good deals. So it's the tough love. Somebody's got to look at these really bad deals and how we're being exploited and just get a fair shake and see what the authentic wealth is of these other countries. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the whole, when he started talking about tariffs. And that's a very divisive issue. And everyone's like, oh, if you put tariffs on things, it's going to drive our prices up and all this other stuff. But then he points out, do you not know that we also are affected by other countries' tariffs, that they maybe charge more and we're supposed to be okay with that? And I was really sort of appreciative when he said, he talked about, was it reciprocal tariffs?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they give to us, we will give in return. Whatever is put on us,
so
here's
a cheat sheet to other countries. Okay. If you want 0% tariffs, make your tariffs on our goods 0%. The magic math about how there could be 0 tariffs, right? If it's reciprocal, then all you got to do is offer a really good deal, and we'll just update our ledger and say, oh, thank you for the 0%. 0% for you, 0 tariffs.
Yeah. But if anything makes sense, then the other party is like, whoa, we can't let someone look good. We can't let someone do things that help anything.
But I like the second point of that he mentioned last night, where not only is it just the percent of the actual tariff, but if there are other regulations as far as like another country, if they didn't want to receive certain a car coming in their country, they want to protect their car industry, they don't want your car, and I don't really want to get in a tariff war with you, they can do something else that makes it harder to sell that car in there. Like they might if the United States car comes in and it doesn't get 63 miles per gallon, right, then it can't come into the country, which didn't charge a tariff, but it basically specifically targeted that product and made it so that car couldn't get into their country. So even those creative tariff placeholders, they're reciprocal on the other side as well. So they would apply directly to your product. And I think that was an important point. They didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but that,
yeah,
that
absolutely. There was a lot, I think, that seemed fair, that seemed to make sense. Yeah, I'd love to hear what other people say. I don't know if we want to give the phone number again, but what I love this format. I love being live on Facebook. I love having people call in. I like people having a respectful conversation. What kills me is when you can point out something that makes sense, something that could be helpful, and somebody wants to fight you in a disrespectful way. I just the other day on Facebook, I had to just pull the plug. Somebody posted something that was very one-sided. I very respectfully said, I'm not trying to be argumentative. Here's a viewpoint I have. Any thoughts on this? I wonder what you would think about it this way. It was this is so dumb. You are so stupid. I can't believe it. I was like, my mistake. I thought we were all grown-ups. I'm sorry. By all means, go back to your crying.
Yeah, I don't want to judge you. But how many?
But you're good.
How many times are you going to go to this well
and
come to the same freaking conclusion? I'm going to write it down, put it on a sticky note, and put it right there. Right?
I know, because I hold on to this very small, maybe naive faith in humanity that it is possible for everyone to be a grown-up and respectfully disagree and have conversations, have the tough conversations like we do, where you bring up those buzzwords, you bring up those sticky situations or those really divisive topics, and you discuss them in a way that will actually move something forward and have anything good come out of it. And unfortunately,
okay, hold on. That's admirable, right? So if we were given admiration points, I would give you some right now. But if I go to WebMD and put in what this is, it's going to say delusional psychosis.
Yeah.
Because you can test it one or two things. Like, I believe that if I go up to a beehive and I stick my finger straight up the beehive, that those bees will know that I didn't really want to cause harm and they won't sting me. So today, I'm going to go do that. Whoop. Stings, like, I cannot believe I stuck my finger in the beehive and they got stung again. But this time I believe that they will know my true heart. How many times would I do that before you'd be like, Joe, I got a really good piece of advice for you. Stop sticking your hand in a beehive. Think of something different, because obviously what you think is true is not true.
Yeah, and
sorry for lecturing you on this.
No, it's fine. And I know I keep going back for more punishment. One of the things I also said to my husband last night is I so relate, I feel like, to RFK Jr. Really, he is the one that sort of got me more involved in this whole subject matter and sort of maybe deep diving into certain issues. And I relate to the idea of you were for one side or you followed certain beliefs. And the moment you questioned them, you were shunned. People looked at you differently. People accused you of things just because you were like, wait a minute, I am allowed to get more information on something. And it's so interesting that when that started happening, when I started to show support for RFK Jr., just him alone, the amount of people that called me a Trump support, you MAGA, you Trumper, you blah, blah, blah. I was like, I've not even said a thing about Trump. I'm just interested in Kennedy. And then I had the audacity to say, well, if I see the media being shady on him and being biased, could they also be biased on Trump and maybe Kamala and Walz and whoever else? So I started doing more digging and I went, holy cow, there's media bias. So could I maybe start questioning these things? And I watched my own family members start taking digs at me. They make little comments. I had a cousin unfriend me on Facebook because all I said is I used to hate Trump and I no longer hate him. I distrust the media. I think there's a lot of bias in our information. So I'm open for more information. And they're like, nope, can't even. I was like, wow. Because I started to get other information and maybe look at things differently. Like that is such a wake-up call for our culture. And it's so sad and so ridiculous. But yes, to your point, 100% real life. What's the phone number? Anybody want to weigh in on this?
330-595-1600. So is it pronounced MAGA or MAGA? Because I don't know if it's short A or long A. You said it MAGA. And I don't think that's
say MAGA?
MAGA, yeah.
Oh, it's MAGA.
It is MAGA.
I said MAGA?
You said MAGA.
All right, I meant MAGA.
Okay.
Maybe I was thinking like
I got hung up on that.
Maybe I was thinking Maha, make America healthy again, or is that Maha?
It's Maha. It has to be. You can't.
Maha. That sounds silly.
No, it's Maha. No, it's either one or the other. You can't start switching that up.
MAGA and Maha.
That's it. No, inconsistency.
Maha doesn't make sense.
All right. Carter says TDS is real for sure. Do you think the Democrats acted childish yesterday because of TDS?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I hate to do a blanketed statement for all. I don't know if they were all that way. Like I said, I feel like there was a time or two that maybe one or two stood and clapped. But is there at least a small group of them, at least, that were childish? Yes, I think so. I think it was even proven when they recognized the little boy from Texas with brain cancer. Mm-hmm. If you can't acknowledge that kid or the victims of all the other situations he pointed out, because you might look like you are betraying your party, that's a party that has some issues. That's wrong to me.
So you got your 5-year-old and they're really mad at you because you took something away from them, right? Do they have struggled to acknowledge things that will bring them out of their madness because they want to be mad and they want to pout? So even something that's really good is not the antidote to bring them out of that piss offness, for sure.
Yeah.
So they were 5-year-olds. They were behaving like 5-year-olds with their little passive aggressive signs and the wardrobe. They wanted to make it about them, right?
Yes.
Their protest of it was their identity. And then that Mr. Green standing up and shaking his cane. There's so many memes in this that could be created. I cannot wait until the internet takes a hold of this one.
And one of my little digs that I took last night, it was interesting. The commentary before Trump actually got started, they were talking about how in protest, some of the Democratic representatives chose not to even be there. AOC and a couple others didn't show. So when Trump started talking about sending federal workers back into work, into the office, because some of them weren't showing up for work, if I were Trump, I would have said, like, much like today.
Right.
Much like today, where they chose not to
honestly,
show up.
I would prefer the no-shows over the showings.
The disruption.
That was.
Yeah. And again, to my point of I was tired and why is the song so late? Every disruption just made it go longer.
Right.
And I'm like, if you all are so against this, could you not drag it out at least?
As just a regular person, what is the purpose? The purpose of that thing for everybody, all of the legislators, to get together on a night and be spoken to by the president. What's the purpose of it? Do you know?
I mean, I feel like it should be to get everyone sort of on the same page and lay out a game plan of what we're doing in the future.
Maybe 150 years ago,
right,
when you didn't have social media and 1,000 different news outlets, you didn't know where the president was at on certain things, right?
Yeah.
But to bring them together and it not be just a campaign speech or a rally, you're not providing really any new information. You might get your party more in lockstep, but you don't need a joint session of Congress to do that. If there other people are there and you don't have something in the mix, a reach out, a punch in the mouth, like if you don't have a reason for them to be there, I wouldn't show up either. Like, do you really think somebody went into that and after hearing the speech was like, you know what? I'm freaking on board. Like, now's the time.
Changed my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't happening. So it was completely pointless. And it was just more theater for the drama.
Yeah. That's where I say these things are pep rallies. That is what they are. If it's a Democratic president, it's a big old pep rally for the Democrats. And if it's a Republican president, it's a big old pep rally for the Republicans. Have you ever seen, whether it's an event like last night, whether he's addressing Congress, whether it's a State of the Union, anything in which they sounded like everything was not going swimmingly? Has anyone ever stood up there and said, so far things are not good, it's a real shit show here? No, it's gonna just be, let's hype ourselves up.
So another one of the lies that according to MSNBC that we're told during that speech is that Joe Biden is responsible for the high grocery prices and the inflation. So regular consumer, what are you more likely to believe? That this is a construct of Donald Trump or a construct of Joe Biden's previous policies?
The question I always ask is, were egg prices not high before Trump took office? They were, right? The pricing of things started to go up before he took office. Is that a fact or is that not?
In the latter part of 2024, there was an avian flu scare. And one of the policies was that they slaughtered some of the high-risk chickens, right? And removed some of the egg-laying population of chickens to combat the bird flu. And which meant you have less layers, you have less eggs. So the scarcity came in, and leading into the first portion of it, there just was less of a product because there were less hens to be able to lay those eggs. Now, you can make the argument that it was a legitimate strategy. He was president. He felt like that's the best way to stave off the avian flu. Well, fine. Okay. Well, it still doesn't change that action, regardless if it was on purpose or it was, a result, a real strategy. That's just a product of that strategy.
Right.
What Trump promised on day one is that he would reduce it. Okay. So if he came out and said on day one, I'm going to make this thing better, that was a promise that was impossible to be able to service.
Yeah.
And that was a mistake to be able to. Now, and I have to go back and listen to the words. Did he say, I'm going to lower the prices on day one? Or on day one, I'm going to do the things that eventually will make the prices lower? I'm guessing Hitchman Trump said, I'm going to lower the prices on day one. And he caught himself in his own trap.
Yeah. And for sure, a lot of his personality, I guess you could call it, gets him into some hot water.
Yeah, right.
Of course, you're going to have people now that are like, oh, let's rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and people are going to be like, what a waste of time. Egg prices are so high, and that's what we're looking at. There are things I think he does.
That's brilliant, by the way.
What, renaming it?
The Gulf of America, Greenland, Panama Canal, brilliant strategy.
Why?
So you have an entire party that is gunning for everything that you're doing. They have tools to stand in the way of getting all of the real important stuff done. And they have the attention spans of a flea. So if in a news cycle, I got to do this quick before they figure out how to stop it and combat it. So I'm going to take something absurd and I'm going to just put it up there, right? And then what you're going to do is be I want to pay homage to my intelligence by saying the Greenland thing is stupid. So I'm going to go pay attention to that. And while you're paying attention to that and being, completely in that chaos, I'm going to be doing this, and these important things. But since these ones are nice and boring, that's the fodder that keeps you distracted so I can get the shit done.
He threw some goldfish crackers on the floor for the toddlers
100%.
to keep them occupied while Daddy went and did some work.
100%. So watch, there'll always be of that thing. The thing you can't quite figure out why that's important to keep those brain dead Democrats distracted and paying attention to it, writing news articles and putting time on the mainstream media, right? To keep the rest of the populace paying attention to dumb things.
And then they can sit back and say, oh, all the dumb stuff he's not doing real work. And it's like, okay, well, let's now have this.
But if it's happening, why wouldn't you? If you were, the movie, what was it? The worms were in the ground. Tremors, yeah. Yeah. So if you walked out, you're just going to get sucked up by the tremor and you knew it, right? Mm-hmm. So what you had to do is keep the tremors occupied so you can make your way over here. If you kept them going, like if you take the motor and start running it over here, they pay attention to it, but you start running and they're like, oh, wait a minute. And they turn back. But by the time they realize that you made that distraction happen, you're already to the food or you're already to the roof and you saved your life by carrying a distraction. It's beautiful. I don't want to give the playbook away, right? Even though I just did.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot, I think, that we don't know. That's why I get so heated when I talk about people having respectful debates and respectful conversations. So many people are so quick to just be like, you're so stupid for thinking that way. You don't know. You don't know anything. You don't know what's going on. And we've talked about the whole incident when Trump and Vance and Zelensky had that exchange and cameras were everywhere. Number one, cameras were everywhere. If you think this is how they would really act and what they would really say about something, I don't think so. I think people act a certain way when they know they're being watched. But is that even what we really thought it was? There is so much, I think, going on behind the scenes and so much more depth to anything that we are looking into that to look at somebody and be like, you're such an idiot for thinking that way makes me think you're the idiot for even saying that. You know what I mean?
I do, but I always look at the purpose of what's happening. If you have two separate groups that they're not agreeing, do you really want to engage in conversation that when there's a 0% chance that they're going to see some kind of light bulb in their head and all of a sudden start pushing new information? Because here's a test, right? This is how you're going to determine whether or not you want to engage in conversation or not. So you and I are truth seekers, right? We just want to know. I don't have a vested interest to know, do vaccines cause autism or do vaccines not cause autism? Mm-hmm. I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have, and I'm okay either way. If I trust the fact that you did due diligence and you come up with the fact that no, they don't, I can accept either freaking way.
Yeah.
But if the person you're arguing with cannot accept one of the options, they are bought into one. Like if you say, hey, you know what? We were wrong about climate change. The things we're doing in a high percentage that we can't control it anyway. If you can't accept, if somebody does the research and finds out, you're not willing to accept it, but then you can't enter into a conversation with them because they're unchangeable.
If you can't accept the results and you can't accept someone even questioning it and looking into it, then yeah, what are you going to do? I think you have a question, by the way.
Okay, Joe, do you think he changed the name of the Gulf of America due to the fact that Biden did an executive order that can't drill in the Gulf of Mexico, not in the Gulf of America? That's an interesting deal. Yeah, if it's referenced by a name, you do a name change, new owner, like now all of a sudden. But I honestly think that moratorium we can get rid of it. I honestly think these 5 things that he laid out, Panama Canal, Greenland, Canada being a 54 state, some of them he probably never pictured actually happening.
Yeah.
Because it was fodder. He probably was assuming that Greenland wasn't going to be like, okay, but if there's no downside if it does, right? Except for we don't want Canada's voters or the liabilities that come with Canada. So if that one happens, that might be a, oh shit, like you messed up by, wishing that one into existence. But the Panama Canal, what's the worst case? We take over Panama Canal. Greenland, like huge mineral and energy reserve. So if that one comes to be, if it doesn't, that's okay. And if it does, that's okay. But it needed to be the distraction. So, I give a little credibility that the change of the name changes some moratorium that doesn't allow drilling, and now it opens it back up.
So it wasn't just a power flex. It wasn't just a
maybe,
hey, watch what I can do.
But the detractors hate when they say Trump is playing 5D chess. They hate it because it's giving him credibility in an area that he can think more than 30 seconds down the line.
Yeah.
And he's setting up the next play and the next play and outmaneuvering you only because his the landscape that he was looking at was just more miles deeper than you were willing to look.
Yeah. And it's really interesting too, those that are playing the long game and the short game. Trump directly stated last night that here are some things we're going to do, and it's not going to be pretty at first. And it might be a little bit of a hardship that we got to get through, but in the long run, it's going to work out. It's going to be great. How often, I wonder, do other presidents make things happen very quickly because they only got so many years? I got a 4-year time span, and I want to make all these things happen real quick so that I can put those all on my resume. Here's everything I did, even if it was not done well, even if it caused something devastating after them. Oh, but look what I did. Look what I did. And instead of doing it the smart way, that may take some time and or maybe a little rocky before we get there.
And how much time are you willing to give? If the Trump administration is working at a breakneck speed, where other administrations would have just, gotten their resources in line and really wouldn't have done anything. The strategy is good. We're moving very quickly at things, means that you get to do more things before they shoot it down and find a way to stop it. But at the same time, you create more mistakes when you do things faster. So if I went to a group, it's easy to fire 10,000 people and then hire the 200 people back that were mistakes versus hiring 10 people and then outrage, another 10 people, outrage, and then they have an injunction that stops you. And in the end, the net gain was you fired 20 people and you didn't have to hire anybody back. The other ones were that you fired a group of people and then hired them back. So which one's the better net gain is the more dangerous, chaotic one. And how long are the people? Because the Democrats are going to take every chaos, every mistake, everything that you do and use that to undermine public support. So if you make too many mistakes and you're not as, good at choosing things as you thought you were, you might have a really short shelf life before the public's like, hold on, we want boring again. Look at all this fallout. Like, if you do something with the Postal Service and now people stop getting their Social Security checks, or you do something with the FAA and planes start crashing, or you question
vaccines and now they think
measles
nobody is going to vaccinate.
Yeah. And how bought into the detractors are. Not only will they, not only will they condemn you for things that happen, I would go down the path as some of them would be pro them actually happening, because it really helps their case. And if the fallout is, people have to be murdered that are citizens, right? I've watched all the social media. I know that if Trump is Hitler and Hitler should be killed, they wouldn't, they would halfway roll out the red carpet to make sure something they wanted to happen. So I wouldn't put it beyond them. And that's not an official, I have proof that they're making plane crashes and measles outbreaks happen. But we went through COVID. We know what they are capable of and how free of empathy they have with the people that get crushed because of their decisions. So
how about Joe Rogan, Elon Musk's latest discussion, where Elon says those astronauts that have been stuck in space for months could have been brought home months ago.
Yeah.
But the current administration at the time was like, we cannot have you, who's associated with the other party, do something that makes them look good.
Yeah.
So we got to wait till after the election. And if people are like, what? That didn't happen. It did happen. And that is shady. And if you think they are not about to do something that is damaging to the American people just to make themselves look good, either party, then I think that's a little naive.
But I mean, the overall theme here is the wrapping, right? Mm-hmm. And so we use your space example. Intent really matters, right? So if Trump said the things he said because he wanted his supporters to go take over the Capitol and whatever, you have to kind of get in the head of the person and prove the intent that that's how it should happen, right? Mm-hmm. The space thing. If you were to ask Joe Biden, you sat him down here and saying, hey, you know what? I hear in the news that you had the ability to go rescue these astronauts up there. And there's, some speculation that you didn't rescue them for political. Either you didn't want to reward Elon Musk or you didn't want a disaster to happen on your watch, kick the can down the road. I am 100% certain he would not go with either one of those. There's already going to be a line that he did it for this other wrapped reason that lets him off of the hook of having responsibility and puts it in some kind of feel-good wrapping that if you disagree with it, then you hate puppies and you like to kick puppies. That's their MO, like every time. Plausible deniability wrapped in something that's hard to argue or disagree with.
Yeah, it's like, here's something really, really good, and this is something everybody wants. And if you want, let's go ahead and put something that's terrible and maybe nobody would want and maybe doesn't make sense, but sort of benefits us, and we'll wrap it in the package with the really, really good thing so that when you want rid of that really bad thing, now you want to kick puppies. How could you take away this really good thing? And now we're mad at you for wanting to take away this really good thing instead of being mad at the person that put the really bad thing in the package.
Yep. This comment, this is the secret sauce, by the way. I could not support this any more than the words that I'm going to say. Trump follows the art of war. Never stand in the way of your enemy while he's destroying himself. Democrat Party destroying itself. Have you ever read The Art of War?
No.
Dude, like philosophical. This is a masterpiece. This is a military strategy book. Mm-hmm. And it's outlining how all of Asia was dominated by the prowess of military strategy. And it is hardcore. There's so much psychology in it. And you can translate. By the way, Trump's book is called The Art of the Deal, is paying homage to the art of war.
Okay.
Because if you take the principles of defeating enemies and taking over power, and you take it and translate it to anything, whether or not it's health, weight loss, whatever, like these things translate from a psychological standpoint to all things. And one of the maxims of this is never stand in the way of your enemy while he's making a mistake.
Himself.
Yeah. But that is Trump. If you want to know Trump, you read The Art of War, you read The Art of the Deal, and you will know exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it.
I might have to read that.
The Art of War is a very hard read. It is a very big book.
Right, then I'm not going to read it.
Okay. The audiobook helps a little bit because, for me at least.
Yeah.
It does, but it's a masterpiece.
And then you sort of compare that with Trump's book?
100%. Like it is a one-for-one, what he says in that are the principles applied from The Art of War. And they have been, we're talking about hundreds of years of wisdom and it's never been outdone as far as military strategies go. So
yeah. And I really relate to the idea that the Democratic Party destroying itself, pushing people towards Trump. I feel like that is my case. Nothing that Trump first said or did sucked me in to be like, ooh, this could be great. But what I watched the Democratic Party do is what made me go see what Trump might do instead. Because like I said, I started to get interest in RFK Jr. And when I watched his name go through the mud and the media that is owned by the left say things that I knew were not true. I looked at the information. I listened to interviews. I listened to words out of his own mouth. I looked at what things were done. I know that what this media commentator said is not true. I went, well, if that's not true, then maybe this isn't true. And it wasn't just one-sided. I saw things that maybe Kamala Harris did or did not do, and the right-wing media accused her. And I said, no, she didn't do that. She didn't say that. That's not fair. You took her words completely out of context. Just like you took JD Vance's words completely out of context, just like you flat out labeled RFK an anti-vaxxer when he specifically stated he is not, and there is evidence that proves that. And I went, holy crap, I'm not believing any of you people anymore. I'm actually going to go see what these people are doing and saying. And I went, oh, this is a different picture. And when you back it up by being childish, and when I say, hey, here's something I looked into that Trump or Vance or RFK or Tulsi or anybody did or said, and that's kind of interesting. What about this point? And your only answer is, screw you, you're stupid for even looking at that. Well, that shows me, well, I think that's right then. You clearly don't have any other explanation but name calling and look over here. Don't pay attention to that. Those people are bad. This is good. They're fear mongering and they're a danger and they're going to hurt you if you don't just listen to us. And no, that's ridiculous.
All right. 4 winners from last night. These are ones that came to head.
Okay.
Right. The first 2 are coupled together. This is Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Okay. Do you know those 2?
From South Park?
South Park.
Okay.
They got so much content out of last night's deal.
Oh, yeah.
We can have probably a full season of South Park just based on what we saw last night and the caricatures that they can make out of this. So 2 winners were those 2.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you saw Elon Musk showed up in a suit and tie yesterday, which we're not used to seeing him dressed for the occasion, and who he was standing next to. Did you see that little exchange?
Was it the blonde woman?
Oh yeah, the blonde woman.
Who was? I didn't know who that was.
Don't know who it is yet. It could be completely. I'm going to just make some rumors up here.
I thought maybe it was his girlfriend.
So he handed her a bottle of water. Like her posturing, like she was very defensive posture, standing next to Elon. So Elon believes in the collapse of society based on people who are just not having enough kids to support society, and so he has 14 kids. And so he moves on from woman to woman, impregnating, because his belief is that he needs to have more kids. And so if you're not going to have them, he needs to put a whole Genghis Khan tribe together of his bloodline way down the road. And I'm for this. So my thinking is he handed her the water. They did some sweet talking after the event. We might have baby number 15 somewhere in the future. So we can have lots of Elon Musk blood out in society.
Yeah.
So those are my 4 winners. The girl who's never going to have to work ever every day. I don't know who she is. She might be set. I don't know.
We could be way wrong about this.
I'm starting a rumor, and I like this rumor with the prospect of more Elon Musk kids, and she's going to be set. And then Trey Parker.
I mean, because we need somebody to rival Nick Cannon's kids. Good Lord. Oh. He was on at least 12, I think. So Elon has 14 kids.
Yeah, soon to be 15.
And do you think he does that on purpose?
Yes.
Holy cow.
A billionaire that's impulsive, that probably has access to every woman that he just says, hey, you want to get to it? And she's probably like, yeah, let's do that. You're a billionaire. This is cool.
You're a billionaire, and I know I'm going to be taken care of. And...
Yeah. And so, let's have some babies. And that's probably how it goes down. I wouldn't, he's probably got a waiting list, and he's hand selecting who's going to pass on. Because we need more Elon Musk. Who's going to do Mars and androids and SpaceX and be Doge like after he's 53 years old? So he's not going to want to do that forever. So he's got to have successors that pick up the throne, the scepter, and do that when he's gone.
That's a good point. I was thinking last night too, if Trump only has 4 years, if he does create some really great motivation and get our country in a good direction, who do you think should take over when he's got to be done?
Think of this as sort of like an interview process. So the goal is that he has 2 solid years until midterms in this setting where he's got a majority in the legislature. He's got a favorable judiciary somewhat. I look to see a lot of those judges get expelled here quickly, not Supreme Court, but some of those lower courts. And so he's got friendly. He could get this stuff done now if he can keep that, I'll call it a caucus, that group together and keep hitting on these. But it's going to take regular benchmark successes to keep everybody bought in. If the public support erodes, then all of those people who are supporting it and going to a midterms know that they're going to support Trump, but then choose to lose their election. Never going to happen. So it's got to be super popular. So if I'm doing this, I'm cherry picking very popular parts of this and putting it right at the tail end. So you can have an achievement right before midterms that resonate with voters. So the people who are supporting you, that's almost paying homage. So we're talking like political strategy on this, but you have to have a solid 2 years. Now, if you can go into midterms and wiggle your way into, at least a close minority, 49, 51, something like that, then the popularity of it, a lot of this bad stuff will have eroded by then. And you might get some Democrats that also want to be elected, and they might be more willing to buy into the success train, but it's got to be successful. And the Democrats know that they have to make it not successful, right? And if they have to lie, cheat, and steal to make it feel to the public that this isn't a successful thing, that's what you hear right now.
Yeah.
But I think they're overplaying their hand early. Later on, it's not going to be as effective because they're overdoing it right now.
And what's so frustrating is to find out whether or not something was actually successful can be extremely difficult to do because it depends on who's reporting the information to you. One party or one media outlet or one source could be like, this is going so great and things are good and here's some statistics. And then another side will be like, all I hear is how terrible this is. And I have sources that say they're not on board with this.
If you have polling and you show the things that are important to people and you have 80-20s, right? 80%. So the next thing I do is the thing that's polling higher. And the next one you do another poll and you keep doing polls and you keep attacking the thing that has the most public support, because that's the controlling force. Now, the goal isn't to get the people who are opposing you to go along with it. That's not the goal at all. It's to keep the people who are supporting you bought in long enough to keep the public support. And it's going to be, the Democrats picked the 20 side, which doesn't have enough public support. And that's why they're going to get just vanquished in the end of this. They have to almost say, all right, and Carville was one of the first persons to come out. Like, if we go down this path, we're just going to keep losing elections. And some reasonable sort of like moderates have to join the train. They're like, I'm going to begrudgingly hold my nose and support Trump because that's what my constituency supports. That would be the smart play, but they're not ready for that part yet.
Yeah. That sound is not a phone call coming in, is it?
It is not.
Okay. I keep looking. I was like,
you'll see it right there.
What is our number?
330-595-1600 if you want to call. And
595-1600. Let us know. And we welcome callers from any viewpoint.
Yeah.
I always try to make sure I don't want us to seem like we are ever just always one-sided. We can't help the fact that one side makes more sense than the other side. But if you disagree, you are welcome. And
I have 3 or 4 people who are polar opposites of me, and they're the most fun discussions. They don't end well, and they're very short-lived usually, but the exchanges at least last a little while where there's some good back and forth, and they're fun when they're at that level. But when you get, like, we speak in, we're not partisans, right? I hate both sides. I just happen to align at this moment with the logic behind one of those sides.
Right.
But I could just as easily sway to the other side. Like, you could bring up a universal basic income. Like, that's a fun topic to talk about with someone, and conservatives will be like, no, off the table. Right. And I'm willing to hear why you think it's a good idea, how you would, like, as long as we can talk about it, like, you make the math right and make it so that it's not a net loss. And that might be a good idea to trial out. If your side can't admit defeat, can't want to keep doing something even though you were completely wrong, now you're unreasonable and there's no more discussion to be had.
Yeah.
But if you're like, okay, well, Joe's willing to float this thing as long as I just throw enough concessions into the pot to make it palatable for both of us, that's where I think we're headed by the end of this 2 years. I think people are going to be forced into conceding more, because you're not going to, like, how many people can you have the COVID-19 discussion with and are still as entrenched in what their beliefs were before it, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just like, well, nobody knew, right?
Yeah. And then, and the hypocrisy of saying, well, you were okay with this, but you're not okay with this. And it's the same thing, but they don't want to give.
They're not going to be able to live there forever.
Yeah. And I agree. I have never been strongly to the right. And I'm sure as heck not strongly to the left right now. Do I see advantages on either side? Sure. Growing up and as a young adult, I was always tending to be a little more liberal leaning. I never want to say that someone's rights were being taken away. I would always support my friends that were part of the LGBTQ community and their right to do certain things. And I would never say they can't be who they are. And there were all these little bits of information on issues that I'll be like, absolutely, let me hear your side. But then when you say, okay, I hear that, but what about this? Here's where I think then it goes off the rails or it goes a little too far, and you're met with anger and you're met with basically disdain, and people are like, well, now you're against me. You're either all 100% with me or you are against me. And I was like, those are my only two choices. I guess I'm against you because I am allowed to be somewhere in the middle. And we're very divided right now. I think people in the middle are just accused of being towards one side.
Yeah, and that's why I know that they're losing their grip, because you can't defend the logic on the second. It used to be they can defend their logic on the second jump because they had all of the cover fire laid down by X and Facebook and the mainstream media. Now that's not the case. So one of the arguments that by second step it trails off into the abyss is the quote was that why is it a better idea to lay off a bunch of government workers rather than just tax billionaires more? Okay. Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's has a populist appeal to it. Yeah. Go after the billionaires. Nobody feels bad for them. They make too much money. They make more money than I do. So let's take some of their money and fill it into the apparatus that is government. And then you're like, okay, well, what if the apparatus of government is lighting money on fire where you're not getting good value at it? So if you were at home and you had a pot that was leaking water, right? Mm-hmm. And you had two views, two ideas. It's, well, just put more water in the top. And the other was like, let's stop putting water in the top and just plug the holes. And then we can worry about what we're putting in the top after it's leaking. Somebody's going to win that debate and lose that debate. And you have to, you basically have to give a good reason why you think the waste should be tolerated, right?
Yeah.
You just need more incoming into that so we can waste even more. You lose that one with me.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
like, stop the bleed and then we can assess this emergency.
You could think of 1,000 analogies that no single person would take that approach unless you had no respect for the loss of value and other people's stuff. And that's where, it go right down. And that's where it'd say, well, you're just stupid. You don't understand math. And I'm like, make it make sense to me.
Do you need a civics class?
Yeah. To make it make sense. That's all I need is say,
make it make sense. Maybe instead of MAGA, make it make sense.
That's bad, Mims.
Speaking of which, somebody said something.
All right. Justin says, to Kelin's point, anyone can put on a MAGA hat and go do something evil, and the left will put that on TV, take that to the highest levels of manipulation, and that is what they are capable of. Not to say the right is not capable of the same, but this administration seems more focused on getting things done versus upholding a narrative. I mean, it's absolutely right. And again, they had that cover fire before, right? So let's just say the Democrat, let's reverse it. So Joe Biden's up there. The Democrats bring in a young Black cancer survivor and does that, awarding him the Secret Service badge.
Yeah,
right?
So
should have been whatever. And none of the Republicans stand up, clap, acknowledge, think that's a really nice gesture. What would the mainstream media say about it? They would say that Republicans hate Black cancer survivors 100%, versus laying down cover fire, right? How did they pitch it? They said that the young boy was exploited for Republican emotional support or whatever they said about it. So, but as long as that shit happens, right? Yeah. Then it's definitely still in the court of the Democrats get away with way more criticism without, repercussions than the Republicans. So if I can cast a MAGA hat wearing person as a Nazi, stupid, doesn't understand, I can go out there and find examples of a really dumb, really racist, really, someone should be expelled from the movement. I can find a ton of those.
Yeah.
And I will, if I can make it seem like all MAGA are like that, that's good branding. That's marketing. That is the game that we're playing. So you're either going to try to get the Democrats to stop that behavior or do that shit better than them. And that's really your only choice. And that's why I say that's the game we're playing.
And what some people I think don't realize is that is absolutely happening. It's absolutely legal. NGOs, non-government organizations, where you can actually pay people to, whether it's put on a MAGA hat, whether it's put on what was the pink cat hat of years ago?
Did you say cat?
I didn't want to say that word that you just said. I let you say it.
The vaginal.
The vaginal caps. Whatever it is, pay people, put on this gear, put on this merch, go on this street corner with these signs and say these things and start protesting, and I'll give you money. Okay. Take pictures, news coverage, look at what these people are doing and how they feel. And that is legal, and that happens. And that is such bull crap. And if you think the media is not biased, why do we have that?
And that's where the logic is obvious to us. So we'll use election fraud or whatever, but use the same logic. Could the government, or is the government able to populate something with paid actors and theater? Could they do that?
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to, could I go to an NGO and I have some, whatever, give them a couple million, send me a busload of people and act and behave a certain way? Could they do it? Yes. Second step of logic, would we know about it? Is there transparency enough so that if they did it, that we know it's happening and could stop it? Right? So that's your second. So it is possible, and there's very little things to stop it. So if somebody wanted to take MAGA hat wearing people and put them in the Capitol and cause a stir, would there be a way to tell how much of that was legitimate MAGA people or paid theater people? Right? And if the first two steps of logic says that you could do it and you can't tell that it was being done, then you can't have faith that that's what wasn't part of what it was there. So that, and again, the election, if there's a probability that there's election fraud and you don't have a way to stop it, and there are people that are pushing against it being stopped, then how much of it was election fraud? Same 4 steps of logic that you can apply to anything. So the government's rule there would be to say, I don't want you to think that. So I'm going to say, I don't want it to be possible. So we don't want people acting outside of the controls of government. If it did happen, then it's going to be illegal, and there's going to be people that are going to jail, and we got to put a stop to it. And I feel so strongly in ethics that if it ever had to happen, I would condemn it in everything. And then now the public has confidence that not only can it happen and the rules against it, and you would criticize it if it did happen, now I have faith in you.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked the other day on our other show on Unpopular Opinions about the fact that our government has an ethics committee, what a joke.
Ugh.
What a joke. You're telling me it is perfectly legal to pay people to stage a protest, to push your political narrative, knowing it's not real, just to sway voters' minds with lies. And we have an ethics committee that okays that. What else do they do? Can we look into that organization?
You got one job.
Yeah,
right?
one job. Be ethical. And then it's like, hey, all right, let's go ahead and let's look into our spending. Let's do a bit of an audit. Let's see if we're wasting money somewhere. No. We can't do that. Would the ethics committee not want to see if we are ethically spending our money? Who's the ethics committee made up of? I'm interested.
People, the job description is make sure that people are enriching themselves with government, have a lot of outs, that if any of this stuff gets exposed, this is their job description, that they have a lot of outs so that it was somebody else's fault and we absolutely could not catch it. And we make sure that we put mechanisms that protect me from being outed and them from being outed. That's a
You think the ethics committee controls the money that we have in government to silence people? Like when you talk about, if politicians are screwing around with women to keep them from coming to light, we pay them off.
We saw that because they regarded they regarded the institution as something that was sacred. So it was more important that it wasn't authentically sacred. It meant that it was dressed up as sacred. So if they can create an illusion where they protect the integrity of the body, because think about the fallout. If nobody trusts the government, we know they're all goons and they're all corrupt. How much faith would you have in the institutions? That was a bigger threat than actually have, because to you and I, it would be like the ethics committee enforces ethics, not does marketing to make it seem like ethics are being followed. That's the difference.
Absolutely. The whole idea of an ethics committee in our government is just propaganda. We hear that all the time. Any examples you can think of legit propaganda we've seen lately? I know people like to throw that word around.
Nothing really.
I feel like we're gonna maybe get some comments or
what's good? What's good propaganda? Okay, define it first so that we know what we're talking.
That's a good question. Propaganda is basically the information that is out there, things that sort of get you fired up, push a narrative, make you think that this is true information, something that you should go with, when really it's like someone's belief. I'm probably butchering this.
Honestly, I think there's another component to it, because I think if you had a company that was your rival and you wanted to make sure that people bought from you and not that other company, you can say stuff that puts them in a bad light, and that wouldn't be propaganda. I think it becomes propaganda when you go to a television station and make sure that they can't respond and set the record straight. And you protect the information by insulating anybody who challenges that information. Then I think that becomes real propaganda. So if we're like, had a voting bot, right? And I want my person to win. So I make a bot that clicks on yes, right? And my competition says, oh, he's doing that. I'm going to make a bot that clicks on no. If I then went to the place and I disabled their bot, but left mine going, that would be protected corruption, versus once it's outed and we can both get away with it, then it just becomes part of the mechanisms of the game.
Interesting. Another term I keep hearing is gaslighting.
Do you know that definition? Oh, I like putting these terms out because we don't know what any of this shit means.
Yeah, that's always, people just always throw these things out there, and it's both sides. So to me, gaslighting is basically making you feel, so some people would describe it almost as like making you feel like you're not clear about something, making you feel like second guessing yourself, that you must be mistaken, that, hey, I found this information and here's some proof about it. And no, you didn't. That's wrong. You're lied to, kind of sort of getting you in this state of mind that you can't trust information you found, or the way you feel is not right. I don't know, push back on that.
All right. So this actually comes from literature, a book that was written, I think, in the 50s. In fact, while I'm talking about this, let me look up the book. And basically what it was a husband and wife. And the husband was doing something with a lamp, I believe, extinguishing a lamp or putting the lamp out. And when the wife questioned it, he didn't answer the question that he was the one doing this. What he did was he used psychological warfare against her to make her think she was crazy for even thinking that the light was being extinguished, something or other. So it's basically manipulating on a psychological level where you're trying to undermine the better sense and reasons and rationales of another person until they're so beat down that they don't have an explanation. They don't trust themselves. They won't say anything because now they think they're the one who's crazy and the rest of the world is sane. But we've bastardized. Let me see the book because I'm interested. Go ahead and respond while I'm looking that up.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, if anyone else wants to add to that, feel free, either on Facebook Live or via phone, which that phone number again is, I don't remember. 330
595 1600.
595 1600. Let me know what you think.
Maybe it was called gaslighting. I don't know. Like it
could have been gaslight effect.
But so many books have come to pass now because gaslighting, was a new word injected in pop culture. But I think there is an actual novel that was a story that
gaslighting, narcissist is big now.
Yeah, don't even know what any of the shit means. All right, Justin says, anytime the media shows an out of context clip, that doesn't include the entire story to mislead what actually happened. Maybe the Zelensky meeting? And I think the approach from a libertarian perspective is the way that X does it is probably the best way of doing it.
Okay.
Are you familiar on X?
I'm actually not on X.
Okay.
So I don't know a whole lot about
it. Pitch community notes to you. So anybody can really say any legal things, regardless if it has merit, is true or whatever. And when you post something, there are trusted contributors to the site that can make a note on whatever you said. So if you said the sky is purple, right, I can create a community note and I can cite articles, cite truths, cite whatever. So when somebody reads it, they can also read the counter argument.
Is this like fact checkers, or this is something other people can do?
Yes.
Okay.
And so if you get a trusted person to create a note and then you get support for that note, then people see the other side potentially of that note. And then you can read this and then you can read the counter argument against it. And then the reader can decide. Right. So they might both be bullshit. One might be bullshit. They might have some half truths, but then the reader gets exposed to more than just a single opinion, especially when it comes to important things. If let's just say you went into the voting booth and the pitch was here, right? Or what you were voting for is here, but then you had the Republican point of view on it, why it was good and bad, and the Democrat point of view on it. And you can read both of those paragraphs and say, now I know what I'm voting for. The people who are against it, here's why they're against it. And people are here for it. Here's why. Every voter would have a little better, a little better insight into why they're voting on certain things. I think that's a brilliant way of not taking the propaganda arm out of it, right? Where the majority of people only get exposure to one side of the information and lets everybody get exposure to all of the information.
Which would be so great. But I think people can sort of already do that. I could hear something that one politician says and feel a certain way about it. Maybe I really agree with it. That's a great idea. Why would anybody fight this? So I go and try and find out why somebody would fight it and see other views. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is people don't want to do that. In fact, I even saw it was Dr. Phil stated this, so take it for that. But he had said, actually, most people, when presented with more information, will push back harder on what they choose to believe.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine wasting time posting all these articles that say, hey, actually, here's some information, because to me, they're not going to read it. They're going to call you stupid. They're going to say you have the wrong information. How could you not know this? What, you didn't take a civics class? Don't gaslight me with your propaganda. And all they're going to do is fight back with what they want to believe, because it is so much easier for them to just keep saying, well, I'm in the right and I know it, and this is what I choose to believe, than it is to be like, oh, maybe someone else has a point. That would actually that would require I swallow my pride, swallow my ego, admit I may not know everything about something and they might have a point. Let me dive into that. And we're just not mature enough to do that.
All right. So here's what AI could do for us. I think this would be really good. So what they could do is they can profile people who are objective and are open to changing their mind. Right. So you can evaluate everything that you post and say and whatever, and it can decide whether or not you are part of the tribe and all you're going to do is defend. So when you post something, you can check a little box, right? And you can, we'll call them peel offs. You can check the box and nobody will see that is in either one of the immovable parts of the tribe.
Yeah.
They only see it. So the conversations you can have aren't going to be pushback. Like, do you think Republicans get pissed off when a couple of theirs peel off and go join the Democrats, or the Democrats, peel off and then be Republicans? That's probably the kryptonite. How did we lose them? How did they go to the other side? And I think if you had those, what would you say percentage wise of people who are clearly can be gotten to?
Can be gotten
their minds could be changed.
Oh Lord, probably less than half. Maybe
50% of the middle.
Maybe half.
All right. Yeah, I'd go along with that. But that's a big group of people.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you got the other sides arguing it, those middle people get turned off by, I just wanted information. I wanted to know what to do. I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want to be happy, be well left alone and whatever. So if you can get those people out of the conversation and just get information to the people who truly could be peeled off and where they should be on the political spectrum, right?
Yeah.
AI will rescue us.
And unfortunately, in my opinion, from what I've seen, the ones that are so far to one side that you're never going to change their mind no matter what are the loudest ones.
Yes.
They are the ones posting. Everybody else I see that can sort of see both sides. They're more openly minded. They're a free thinker. They're like, hey, you know what? I don't really feel strongly about either side. I see both sides. Maybe give me some more information. Are the ones probably not posting to begin with that are just sitting back and listening, probably the smarter thing to do. And if you try to talk to any of the ones that did post, oh my God, don't even try. All that is a fight because they don't want to hear it.
Picture it this way. The next time you engage in that is that you have people that are in ambush, right? They have their thing that they like to fight about and they practice and rehearsed it. So if they can get you to say something that's even, across the street from what they want to say, they'll jump it and because they get to feel special. People pay attention to them. They sound intelligent. The dividing line, like they're like, oh, I got this rehearsed script about you're a racist, and I'm just waiting for someone to say something's on the periphery of somebody that says something that is quasi-racist, so I can say my thing, and then I will have purpose and design, right? Yeah. And I'm just going to say my thing, and then sometimes someone will throw that at you, and you'll say, wait a minute, that doesn't even freaking apply. Like the context of it doesn't even match. I know you just wanted to say that thing and we're waiting on the unsuspecting conversation to come along so you can say it. They get so excited about their thing. Think about how much virtue credit you get for being able to like be an ally of a certain group, or I'm this and I'm not that, but you are. Like they're just waiting to pull that currency in so they can feel better about themselves. That's a lot of them.
Yeah. I just saw this quote and I wish I had it with me because I don't remember it word for word, but it was something like, it's very difficult to even discuss something with another person that is getting such satisfaction from a false sense of moral superiority.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah. And it's like, that's exactly what they're doing. And there's nothing you say is going to matter. You're just going to fight all the time. And so what do? Then we have things like elections where people can privately voice their opinion. It's an election. I'm going to vote. I don't have to tell anyone about it. And then we see the results of that. And then what happens then? These aren't the real results. These people are evil. These people are whatever. I love when I hear or I start to see people accusing their loved ones, their friends, their family of suddenly being a terrible person. And they say, I had no idea everybody around me was such terrible people. Based off of who they voted for? Like for years, you've known them, you've loved them, you've hung out with them, you've bonded with them, you've agreed with them on things, you've gotten along. And then you hear they voted for someone. And I didn't know they were such a terrible person and shunning them. And I'm like, wow, that's so ridiculous to me.
That's where we're at though. That's like I said, that's the game that's being played.
And there is no, well, you are someone that I have loved and respected and enjoyed being around. I've always thought you were a rational person and not a racist or a Nazi. So why don't you tell me what you're seeing here? I'd like your viewpoint on it because clearly it's not what I'm seeing. No, that would require grown-ups. But all we need to do is.
But if the Democrats are, they're not good at losing. Even when they lose, they're the baseball team that still got to go to Dairy Queen no matter if they won or lost. So they really aren't familiar with this level of loss. They don't know what to do and how to contain themselves. So if the side that one side is getting the sunlight right now, the other side is getting like the sand, right? It's bad for them. They're having a bad day. So last night was a spiking the football in the faces of a bunch of people who are rowdy and angry with you already. Now, do you think that the Republicans should have taken a more high road approach and backed off and bring them back into the fold? Or do you think that this is the kind of tough love? No Dairy Queen for you. You guys absolutely suck. And if the other team's like, oh, you guys suck. And they're like, is it our job? Is it our goal to make them feel better about losses? Or should the loss maybe put it together another strategy, maybe take another angle. Maybe that's what they need, that tough love.
Yeah. And yeah, I was very divided on that thought last night. Is again, part of me really wanted to be like, do not lower yourself to that level. Show the American public that one side is clearly the mature side and the other side is clearly the childish side, and run on that. However, we've seen in the past that doesn't always work. It doesn't always matter. You're going to have the babies and you're going to have the people that are just outlandish and brass, no matter what you do. And I think in this election in particular, like we discussed earlier, a lot of, I think, Trump supporters came to be because they just couldn't stand the other side. And people got so sick of being called a racist when they weren't, or a Nazi when they weren't. They got so sick of the other side being the loud, brash outlandishness that we're like, F you, I am out. I am out, and I want you to know that I'm out, and I want you to know why I'm out, and I'm done being the bigger person. And I totally get it.
Rick says 4 years ago, Republicans acted the same way. Check all the videos on YouTube. And I do not doubt it. Like I said, I don't think anyone, when they're playing that game, has sort of like a humble, moral. I think I've probably seen more olive branches from the Republicans to the Democrats, so that when they were in power, they were willing to work together than the other way around. I think the Democrats are more like, if we lose, we're not working with you.
Yeah.
Or when we win, we're not working with you, kind of thing.
Unfortunately, what's so sad is all of this is such a game. Instead of our government and elected officials being in existence and in their position in order to serve the American people and help our country prosper, it is a business to them. It is we win or we lose. We look good or we look bad. There is no working together mindset, unity mindset. They are divided and they thrive off of that division because they benefit from that division. They've got to look better than other people. They have to get their way. I don't think we will ever have a situation in which they're like, you're right. Let's all be big. Let's all listen to each other. Let's all work together. Let's make things happen, because they don't benefit from that.
And in our founding, we knew this when the country was formed, that the objections and the fight and the gridlock and whatever is part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get in office, if you start changing the rules because you're there and you don't think that the other side is going to change the rules when they're there. Okay, so I see this quote all the time. You brought up business, and people object that government be run like a business. Do you object? Do you think the government should be run like a business?
I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that.
Go ahead.
I think there are maybe certain ideas of business that could make sense in a government setting.
If you were to say no, why would you say no, it should not be run like a business? And in what way should it not be run like a business?
To me, government is meant to be a servant position. To be elected to a position in our government means you are serving someone. You are not there to profiting should not be your main priority. Power should not be your main priority. You are there to give, to help. I feel like when we say a business, that almost has a connotation of profits involved, making money. Not that is in no way involved, but I don't know. It just has a connotation to me that it's less of a servant mind.
Well, let me correct that, because profits, right? So when companies make a profit, what do?
They make money.
They invest in things, right? They buy more materials, they expand into new markets, they run more marketing. So the goal with business is to take $1, right, and then add $1.25 to it, right? And creating more value. So I'm going to take taxpayer money, I'm going to build a road. That added value to now transportation can happen, or communications, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so profit to regular common normies out there means that you're going to have this pool of money that you're going to swim in like Scrooge McDuck, right? When you say it should be run like a business, when you do something, you should be able to say what the value added comes from spending that money. So serving a community meant that if you paid into a bowl for your local town And then they got enough, you'd add a swimming pool, right? Added value to the town. You wouldn't.
And showing that process.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's what how a company, a government should be run more like a company. You should have to justify an expense and show where you added a bigger number by spending a different number. No company would take a net loss on making something. So buy a machine that costs $1 million, right? And you go to the people who are financing and say, yeah, we could make probably about $10 on this. They wouldn't make it because the number that it costs them is more than the amount of value that can be made on the purchase of that machine. And until you can construct it so that there's a net gain, you shouldn't purchase that thing, right? Now, what a part of what you said being servants of, right? This is sort of like the code language that somehow government became a charity, right? Serving the community means giving someone money, right? That doesn't add value. Good.
I don't know if I mean it that way.
Well, it is okay. So Social Security, right? If it's not a good value, then you get rid of it. But it's a charity because now we're giving people money and it's just coming through the treasury. Medicaid, it has taken the place of what true charity is and competed against real charity when it should be nowhere near charity. We shouldn't be doing good things for people because in 2 seconds, politicians just buy your vote by doing a good thing. Oh, yeah. Hey, I'll forgive your student loan if you remember me when it comes down. You're just buying the result that you want. You're using my money to do something that benefits you.
Right.
It has to benefit the actual community it's serving, all people. So when I open the swimming pool as something in the middle of the city, it benefits everybody, right? But if I take what's that new tennis-like game that everybody's pickleball. But if I'm like, oh, my buddies all like pickleball and I'm going to use his funds over here to a pickleball and there's only 20 of us that are freaking going to use it, that would be not adding a net value because you considered a small group of people that you like, you're friends with. I spent everybody else's money on something that doesn't benefit everyone the same way.
Yeah. So I would love for you, that just sort of made me think of this topic. I'd love for you to talk about this idea of taxing billionaires and that somehow solving issues.
It's not.
Right. Could you talk about that? To me, I see that the most is everyone's like, oh, all this could have been avoided if we would have just made billionaires pay their fair share. And that to me, I think is such a go-to for so many people that I'd love for them to hear why that doesn't work.
Yeah. So if all things occurred in a vacuum that did not have opposite and equal reactions, then you're right. Confiscate the money from people. I'll use a different analogy. We'll take billionaires off the table. I'll use two examples. My favorite is let me do pharmaceuticals, for instance. So if you're like, hey, pharmaceuticals, they got all these great drugs. They got all this money that they spend. They provide all of these great medicines for people, right? So let's go in there and we're going to take all of their money, right? They've got a bunch of money. It's sitting there and we're going to take it all. You can do that one time, but let's just say you play that out a little bit. What happens when you go to a pharmaceutical company and take all of their money? What's the next step? What's the cost now to taking all their money? Now you have it. Yeah, you feel good. You hurt the pharmaceutical. Nobody's going to feel sorry for them. They were making a ton of money. You take it.
Now you lost that company.
Okay. Now the company, are they going to innovate the drugs to create new drugs? So you better be super happy with it exists now because you remove the incentive to keep developing. So as long as you're cool with what's here, you're good.
Yeah. Why would they do
so
anything
that's number
else?
one. You remove the incentive to continue doing what they were doing because the reason they did it was because of the profit motivation, right?
Yeah.
So net neutrality. Do you remember net neutrality? We talked about that a couple years ago.
No.
All right. So net neutrality was the government's brainiac idea to treat to internet companies, cable companies, fiber optic companies, as a utility, right? Okay. And so what they were going to do is they were going to cap pricing, and so they can only make or charge a certain amount from the consumers. As long as you're okay with the internet today and you don't think that it's going to keep innovating and there are going to be more companies that need to run more wiring and create new technologies. If you're cool with it today, then go ahead and make it a utility. And then you're going to have today's internet forever. If you believe that there's better, faster, stronger internet, and we want a profit incentive to be there so that people keep innovating through it to make new products, then you don't take all their shit. You don't ruin their business model. But it's almost like a bunch of old people. They're like, I got mine. I'm happy with where things are. I don't care about the next generation that's going to now pay the consequence for me wanting everything to stay the same for the sake of taking shit that belongs to other people in the moment, making myself feel good and others, and ruining everything going forward into the next generation. So you take billionaires and you take all their money away. Do you think they're just going to, I mean, obviously, let's just say you take 90% of their money, right? Do you think they're going to try as hard to get to that same level again by people who are capable of creating gargantuan companies because there's a payoff to do more things? Or do you think you're like, hey, that's the limit. I'm going to walk up to the limit and then I'm done because there's no benefit. If I work another day, I'm just going to end up giving it to these guys. So I'm going to stop innovating, stop growing, stop hiring, stop creating because of that limit that you just imposed. Doesn't happen in a vacuum, and the consequences is what I'm afraid of.
Especially if the money's being taken. This is going to sound insensitive.
We have a call, by the way.
Oh,
so mash on the.
Oh, let's do this. Did it work? Hello?
I don't think you clicked it. Click it again. There we go.
How about now?
Hey.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's Isaac Schuster, calling from Poland.
What's up?
Hi.
First time caller, first time listener.
Yeah, first time caller, long time listener. I just want to make 2 points that I love that both of you are talking about. First things first, to Kay's point about the national government elected officials being like servants of the people. I 100% agree with that. And I think that is a good argument for why they should just get a salary of, you could bump up their salary. They make like 170K right now. You should bump that up to 500K and not let anyone in them or anyone in their family invest in the stock market, invest in crypto, invest in any industry, because they're obviously doing an amazing job in the stock market and they're millionaires because they're able to invest in the industries that they're voting on and they have insider information. So give them a salary of 500K each and stop them from becoming millionaires, because as she said, their job, they are servants of the people, not of their own pockets and making money. It's disgusting.
So we've got to quell that conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Right, 100%. That's the argument. Stop them from investing. And also, while you're at it, put term limits and age limits on them, or at least some kind of cognitive testing so that we don't have zombies making our decisions for us as voters. And then also, Joe, you made a point about the billionaires paying their fair share. I would argue for a consumption tax. Let the people keep their property taxes and let the people keep their income taxes, and then just tax more on the stuff we're consuming, because then it would be truly equal. If you don't have that much money and you can't spend that much money on fancy things and you're a penny pincher and you're trying to save money, it would promote that. And then the folks who can afford yachts have to pay tax, even more taxes on their yachts and on their fancy cars, and they will pay their fair share. So that's my argument. And yeah, it would stop, it would kind of bring down our consumption because people would try and save more money, but that's good for the average person. So
yeah, that was
my 2 points, and you guys can go from here.
That was actually going to be something just devil's advocate when you talked about, pay those taxes on those things. Do you think that would then hurt the industry of luxury cars, yachts, things of that nature?
It would hurt the economy as a whole, but it would. So like I said, it would hurt the economy as a whole, which the rich people hate it. And that's why they'll never vote that consumption tax into place, because what you're essentially doing is you're telling everybody in America, if you save your money and you don't have to pay income taxes, you don't have to pay property taxes, but it promotes saving money and being a penny pincher and budgeting, because then you can hold on to all your money and buy the cheaper car, do what you can, and then you'll save more money. You'll have more money in your bank account. Your dollar will go further. But yeah, it would hurt those industries. But if I do not doubt the ability of the keeping up with the Joneses culture of America, and people are still going to want to flex on one another and drive the fancy car if they can. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you.
Yeah. Talk to you guys. See you tomorrow. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so when we talk next, we're going to talk a little bit about that taxation and consumption because I'm going to put some time in. We got to wrap up here today. I thought that was a good discussion. I thought we outlined what we saw and got some blood pressures up. I'm sure.
Heck yeah! And again, anybody whose blood pressure is up, you are welcome to comment. We don't call you stupid. We don't.
I do sometimes. Like I do. But
I say it with love.
But I do it more generally sweeping, where I judge all groups of people rather than you individually. So if you want to have a conversation with me, I won't call you individually stupid, but your group you came from is probably dumb.
Fair enough.
Friday.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.